Most fans name Devastator first when asked who the strongest combiner is. For 30 years, that's been the conventional answer. It's also wrong. Only one combiner has ever defeated Devastator in a straight fight, and that combiner isn't even the strongest one on this list. This is part 1. By the end, you'll know which of these 6 the fandom has ranked wrong for 30 years. By the end of part 2, you'll know who actually beat Devastator, and why he still isn't number 1. Combiner power isn't measured in tonnage. It's measured in whether 5 sparks can agree on what one body is doing. The weakest combiner ever built is the one whose 5 never agree on anything. Number 12. Abominus. Abominus is the only combiner in the franchise whose components get smarter the moment he separates. The Piranicons debut in G1's 5 Faces of Darkness, 1986. 5 animal-formed Decepticons: Hunger, Blot, Cutthroat, Rippersnapper, and Sinner-Twin. Each one a soldier on his own. Each one capable of strategy, recognition, and basic battlefield communication. Combined, none of those traits survive. Hunger eats his enemies, sometimes before he's killed them. Blot is exactly as repulsive as the name suggests, leaking corrosive fluid from joints that were never properly sealed. Cutthroat is the closest thing the Piranicons have to a tactician, and the bar for that title is on the floor. The combination process loses something every time: cognition, restraint, the ability to distinguish a Decepticon from an obstacle. Megatron deploys Abominus when the objective is to inflict damage without caring what gets damaged. The G1 cartoon shows him being aimed, not commanded. The Marvel comics treat him slightly better. IDW barely uses him. The aligned continuity skips him entirely. Across every continuity that's tried, no writer has figured out how to make Abominus tactically interesting. Because the character isn't tactical. He's a weapon that occasionally hits the people who fired him. 5 Decepticons, each smarter than the thing they become. That's the entire Abominus profile. Abominus is dangerous because he doesn't think. The next combiner is dangerous because the ocean does. Number 11. Piranicon. Piranicon is the only combiner in the franchise whose greatest weakness is dry land. The Seacons appear in G1's Season 3, 5 Decepticons built specifically for sustained underwater operations. Snaptrap, Scalar, Tentakill, Overbite, and Nautilator. Crushing depth. Pressure tolerance. Most Cybertronians can't survive for 30 seconds. A combined form designed to operate in the one environment Cybertronians almost never fight in. That's the problem. Snaptrap leads the Seacons because no other Seacon wanted the job. He's a sea turtle with a god complex and a vendetta against anything that breathes air. Nautilator is the Seacon nobody wanted, including the other Seacons, clumsy, slow, frequently left behind during missions that the Decepticons later pretend never happened. Piranicon's power is real. In open water, on his own terms, he's one of the few combiners who can casually outmatch a standard Decepticon squadron. He sinks ships, he breaches reinforced hulls, he has killed Autobots in environments their alt modes were never designed to survive. Above the waterline, he's a problem the Seacons can't fix. Mobility drops, power output drops. The combined form becomes something he isn't built to be. IDW handles him differently. The 2010s run treats Piranicon less as a brute and more as a tactical asset, a specialist deployed when the conflict moves to coastal infrastructure or undersea Cybertronian colonies. That version is smarter. That version still has the same problem. He controls one of the only environments his enemies can't fight him in. He almost never gets to fight there. Piranicon is limited by terrain. The next combiner is limited by himself. 10 combiners left in the ranking. The next one is the only gestalt the Decepticons built knowing he would lose control of himself. Number 10. Menasor. Number 10. Menasor was designed to be unstable. The Decepticons consider that a feature. The Stunticons debut in The Key to Vector Sigma, Part 2, 1985. 5 Decepticon ground vehicles sparked from the same Vector Sigma activation that produced the aerial bots, the only time in G1 continuity that an Autobot and Decepticon combiner team are born from the same source. Motormaster leads, Dragstrip, Dead End, Wild Rider, and Breakdown round out the team. Each one is a sociopath. The combination process doesn't fix that. It compresses it. Wild Rider is either genuinely insane or the best actor in the Decepticon army. Dragstrip will sabotage his own teammates if there's a chance it improves his finishing position. Dead End is the only Stunticon who is correct about everything and acts on none of it. A nihilist driving a Porsche, content to let the war end however it ends. Motormaster controls them through intimidation. He's the largest Stunticon, the most violent, and the only one they're physically afraid of. When the five merge into Menasor, the threat structure collapses. Menasor doesn't have a Motormaster to fear. He has Motormaster's body, Motormaster's anger, and four other voices arguing about what to do with all of it. That's where the power comes from. Menasor in his first 30 seconds of combat is one of the most destructive forces on Cybertron. After that, he becomes someone the Decepticons have to reason with. His greatest strength is that his five components hate each other. His greatest weakness is that his five components hate each other. Menasor falls apart because his sparks can't cooperate. The next combiner falls apart because his cooperate too well. Number 9. Computron. Number 9. Computron is the smartest combiner ever created. That is also his biggest problem. The Technobots are built by Grimlock during the Quintessent invasion arc of 5 Faces of Darkness, 1986. An Autobot response team designed for one specific job. Process more information than the enemy. Anticipate every move. Reach the right conclusion before the wrong one becomes inevitable. Scattershot, strafe, lightspeed, nose cone, and afterburner. 5 Autobots who individually rank among the most intelligent characters in the G1 cast. 5 processors capable of running tactical simulations in parallel. Combined, they slow down. Scattershot leads with confidence. Computron leads with footnotes. He reaches the correct conclusion every time and reaches it after the battle has moved 2 steps past where the conclusion would have mattered. The G1 cartoon plays this for comedy. The actual lore plays it for tragedy. Computron is the combiner whose every battlefield loss can be traced to a decision he made correctly, 3 minutes too late. Afterburner is a Technobot who would rather charge in and apologize later. Computron never lets him do either. The combination overrides individual aggression in favor of consensus, and the consensus takes time. IDW handles him differently. The 2000s rebuild of Computron operates closer to instantaneous. 5 sparks computing in synchrony, decisions arrived at faster than human language can describe them. That version is genuinely dangerous. The G1 version is the one that defined him, and the G1 version is the one everyone remembers. 5 geniuses combine into one being. That being is slower than any of them alone. Computron thinks too long to act. The next combiner doesn't think at all, and never needed to. 5 combiners left in the ranking. The next one has been disassembled, exiled, and reabsorbed across more continuities than any other combiner in the franchise. And he keeps coming back. Number 8. Bruticus. Number 8. Bruticus is Starscream's army. Starscream lost. Bruticus stayed. The Computicon's debut in Starscream's brigade, 1985. Built by Starscream during a brief mutiny against Megatron. 5 military vehicles, a gunship, 2 ground combat units, a helicopter, and a space shuttle that thinks it's better than the rest of them. The 5-man army Starscream tried to use to seize Decepticon command in a single afternoon. The coup failed. Megatron dragged the Combaticons back into the fold and rebuilt them under his own command. Starscream went back to scheming. The Combaticons went back to work, and Bruticus has remained on the Decepticon roster across every major continuity since. Onslaught plans operations the way Optimus plans speeches. Methodical. Sighted. Half the appeal is the structure of the plan itself, regardless of whether it succeeds. He's the most genuinely tactically competent Decepticon in the entire G1 cast, and the Decepticons mostly waste him. Swindle is a Jeep who has been known to sell his teammates parts while they're still using them. Vortex is the helicopter and the only Combaticon who enjoys his job. He interrogates prisoners. He's good at it. Blastoff considers the others beneath him and is wrong about that in every single continuity. Brawl exists primarily to demonstrate that a tank with a personality is still a tank. Combined, they form a coordinated military operation in a single body. Bruticus does not improvise. He executes plans Onslaught has already designed. That's why he works. Bruticus has outlived 3 Decepticon leaders. He keeps showing up because nobody can quite bring themselves to throw him out. Bruticus exists to break things. The next combiner exists to stop him. Number 7. Defensor. Number 7. Defensor's defining trait is also his defining weakness. The Protectobot's debut in The Revenge of Bruticus, 1985, built explicitly as the Autobot answer to a combiner they couldn't otherwise stop. Hotspot, Streetwise, Blades, First Aid, and Groove. A fire truck, a police car, a helicopter, an ambulance, and a motorcycle. 5 Autobots whose alt modes aren't built for war. They're built for the aftermath of war. That's what makes Defensor unusual. He's the only combiner in the franchise whose default battlefield posture is defensive, not because his components can't fight, but because their entire identity is built around protecting other people first. Hotspot leads his team the way the rest of the Autobots wish Optimus would lead theirs. Direct, decisive, without the speeches. First Aid is a medic who hates being a soldier, and is excellent at being one anyway. Blades is the only Protectobot who actively enjoys combat, which the others treat as a minor personality flaw rather than a tactical asset. The Protectobots are rescuers by design. Hotspot puts out fires. First Aid keeps wounded Cybertronians alive. Streetwise patrols cities, so civilians don't have to fight. Combining into Defensor erases all of that. 5 preservers agreeing, every time, to become one weapon. The Autobots called it a victory every time it happened. IDDoS 2015. Combiner Wars event reframed Defensor explicitly as a peacekeeper drafted into a war he never wanted, making the cost of his combination part of the story, not a footnote inside it. The strongest defender in the franchise is built from the 5 Autobots least suited to fighting. Defensor closes Part 1. He's the strongest combiner who has never been the strongest combiner in the room. 6 combiners ranked. The next 6 include the only one who has ever beaten Devastator, and the one who has never lost to anyone. If you made it through all 6, you already understand more about combiner mechanics than most fans of the franchise. Part 2 opens at number 6, the combiner built to counter Devastator. After that, the gestalt every continuity quietly removes when the writers don't know what to do with him. Then, the Predacon King. Then, Devastator himself. And one combiner above all of them. The one most rankings forget exists. Until then, did Defensor land too high or not high enough? Drop it in the comments.